This is Do It for a Living, your source for inside information on the future of automotive performance.
I was prepared to stay late at a job that paid me a salary, and whether that was the job where I was sweeping the floors or when I'm here by myself in late hours having to finish something up for my business. I think entrepreneurial thinking is a mindset.
What's holding you back from starting or growing your business into what it can be? Well, if you're listening to this, it's not a lack of information. What you're about to hear is all you need to get motivated and start making waves. Do It for a Living podcast details the journey of today's true players in their own words. Find out how they broke out so you can too. The time is now. The time is always now.
Welcome back to another episode of Do It for a Living. I have Jens von Holten from Fuel Injector Clinic with me today. Fuel Injector Clinic makes a lot of performance fuel injectors for primarily imports, but I know they've gotten a lot into the domestic side of things too as well, so they've expanded their line dramatically in the last couple of years. But Jens, how are you doing today?
Very good. Thanks. Nice to talk to you, Kevin.
Cool. Yeah, and Jens and I have known each other for several years, and we see each other pretty much every SEMA, PRI, and then like the Busher Shootout or some other various events of the year. So I've met you several times. We've gotten to know each other a little bit, mostly on the business side of things. But now we've got a chance to kind of hear your personal story, of which I know nothing about, except that you're German. So Jens, why don't you go ahead and tell us about yourself? Give us a history of how you got involved with cars. Your education. Kind of run us through that stuff.
Yeah, sure. It'd be nice to share. And yes, absolutely. The German part is all in the blood, although I did grow up in Cape Town, South Africa. Both my parents were immigrants to that region from Germany, mostly leaving after the Second World War, where there wasn't a lot of work out there in Europe, and certainly people tried different places to live, and so that's where I grew up, and hence my accent is probably less German and more South African, although I have lived in so many places that it's probably pretty mixed up. But that was the beginning. It was a very interesting place to grow up. It's a beautiful country. I recommend for everybody to go visit. I'm glad I don't live there anymore. It was a tough environment. Obviously, lots of people know this for the apartheid regime, and I grew up in the midst of that and saw some pretty wild, race conflicts and, things that were probably similar here in the South in the 60s or so. And that was certainly part of, forming me in the early years. I learned to integrate with very different people and how to take people, at face value versus, looking at what their clothes may be, or maybe what kind of a car they might drive or something like that. Because there's good people and bad people in every walk of life, and that was something I learned very early on, and have taken with me through all my travels and through living in different places.
And so you were in South Africa. How long were you there for? When did you move out of there?
Around just after college, so around 2021, and I actually interspersed my college years with a little bit of travel, so that date isn't as set as it could be with others. But yeah, so I spent certainly the most formative part of my life there, and left when I was able to and had completed my education and so on.
And what was your education in?
In mechanical engineering. I went to the University of Stellenbosch, which is near Cape Town, and I was always interested in tinkering with things, and it was actually interesting because I thought I was going to become a mechanical engineer, and I was going to that was all into building cars and that kind of stuff. And I found out very quickly that most mechanical engineers work in HVAC and in lots of other places that were not all about cars, which made me gravitate seriously towards probably being more of a mechanic than an engineer, certainly in the early parts of my career. And really, the love of motor racing came out of meeting a friend in high school whose dad was very heavily involved in the South African motorsport, and his son was first the karting champion over there, and then with me starting to work with him, we won the Formula Ford championship over there, and he became a professional race car driver over there, and that's kind of what got me in there, and certainly my interest in anything, mechanical was there, and so that's where, the formal study part of the education went, but certainly the love was always into getting my hands dirty and being under a rally car in the middle of some forest, at night with a flashlight trying to repair some part or another.
So you were racing in college then, it sounds like, or at least involved in racing.
Absolutely, yes. So pretty much in the certainly all through the college years, I was either helping my friend, and then after that, it quickly developed into where after college, I worked with a team that he was on and did it professionally. It was interesting because the first opportunity I got to become involved was actually with this team called Owen Ashley Racing Developments. And Mr. Owen Ashley said to me, I have only one position open here, and that is to clean the floors. And I said, I'm taking it. Give me the chance. I'm be the best floor cleaner that you have. And I proved myself very quickly in the floor cleaning department. And he was quite happy to move me on up to higher levels, because one thing you have in South Africa a lot of is people that can do the more labor-intensive tasks. And so I was quickly replaced and moved on to more complex things to do. And so, yeah, we were racing in the stock car kind of categories there. And in amongst that, also my friend's Formula Ford, which, was half in the team and half outside. So typically I would work on his car part-time during the day, some certain things we needed from the team. And then at night, I'd just walk right over to the other engine bay and keep working from 6 p.m. till 11 on the race car if it needed, and we went away. And yeah, we traveled a lot to race in South Africa. It's a relatively big country, and we figured we'd do somewhere in the region of about 10,000 miles a year to make it out to all the races.
Okay, so it's pretty intense racing then. And so how did you go from there to the States? Is there a step in between, or is right out of college you just kind of working with him and move over here?
No, there's lots of stops in between on that one. Actually, where that came from was that my hobby is sailing, and the sailing developed early on too, even though none of my family were big sailors. But another person I met through the college years was a friend that his dad had a boat, and we actually sailed that boat over from South Africa. First in a race that went over to Brazil. There's a race from Cape Town to Rio de Janeiro. And we did that race, which was a disaster because there was no wind. We were becalmed for 7 days, which that's a whole other story. But that love for sailing then brought me over to the United States when that friend of mine, he finished college, and it was his goal to go sail the boat from Cape Town to the Med, which is where his dad wanted to be on the boat sometimes. And so we got tasked with taking the boat over there. Well, we made it through, Brazil and Carnival and all of that. We figured, we're, 21, 22 years old at this point. So this is the best life you can imagine. And we made it through the Caribbean. And when we got to Fort Lauderdale, we'd run out of money. And so that was a place we said, okay, well, let's see if we can earn ourselves some money over in Fort Lauderdale, and became involved there. I stayed only for a couple more months, and I went back because I still had some college to do. My friend stayed and started a business here. And that's where the whole story kind of loops back a little bit later on, that brought me to the United States, because I went to finish the studies in South Africa, did more motor racing, and then took an opportunity that opened up for me to be involved in the motor racing in England. I still think of, the mecca of all motorsports is the British motorsport scene, with Formula One and a lot of very, very high-tech ends of the motorsport being centered over there. Yeah. It's very interesting to learn how, even the teams like Ferrari or Renault, or these teams that really are based outside of the UK, have to have bases in the UK to in order to compete, because
all their suppliers are there, huh?
The suppliers are all there. The most experienced employees are all there, and a lot of them don't want to leave. You can't pull a British guy and tell him he needs to come live in Maranello where he doesn't speak the language. So if you want to have the best, whatever, aerodynamicist or something like that, you got to have a shop for him to work in the UK. And so there I got involved with Jackie Stewart. I don't know if you all know, he was a 3 times Formula One champion, and that team is now Red Bull Racing. It wasn't nearly as fancy then as it is now, but we were 40 members on that team that prepared 2 cars in each of 3 formulas, all open wheel formulas, including the next formula down from Formula One, which at the time was Formula 2000. And it was super interesting. I mean, I learned so much about what it takes to bring a car to every race that is competitive. That level of scrutiny of every little part, the preparation, the number of people behind what it takes that car does not break, when you don't need it to break, is phenomenal. And that's certainly given me a huge perspective on our friends and racers that go to these events like yourself. Y'all go out, and you know that if you had 3 more people behind you that worked
break
all
half
week
as
long,
much, right?
oh my gosh, you'd be you'd be so different as far as your level of preparation and the privateers that do this. I mean, I take my hat off to that. I've never actually done that, because my work has always been in the motorsport, and my pastime or hobby has been sailing. So I know that the people who go out and do this and give up their weekends and their nights and whatever to do this are fighting a different fight, and certainly not able to compete with pro teams like the Stewart team that I was working on, because it's just impossible. Our level of preparation is just, we have so many spares and so many backups on backup systems, and able to go to wind tunnels and develop things when, you got to kind of put a part on and say, let me see, if that works, kind of thing. So it was a total education to do that. And yet it gave me a lot of respect, for what it takes.
And you were doing that full-time as well then, it sounds like.
That was certainly a full-time job. I actually ended up working in the telemetry department in that team, and back then that was state of the art. There was no GPS system yet in the world, and so we set up these huge antennas all around the track, and we're the first team ever to be able to have data where we could place the car on the track within about a 1 centimeter accuracy at any time, and therefore give the drivers feedback and take sector times and things that were just had never been seen before. I mean, I would figure the Formula One teams probably had something similar, but Jackie was well connected, and as a lower level team, we were certainly one of the first that got that, where today you just stick that probably in your iPhone and get all that kind of data.
Exactly.
But back then it was very cool. Anyway, but that ended, and I I got on a sailboat again, and then met back up with my friend who had been in the United States for quite a while, and he offered me a job to run his warehouse. He was in the leather goods business, and I had kind of burned out of motor racing, to tell you the truth. I think I had by then spent almost 10 years, day and night, the sort of dedication I still see from a lot of racers out there whose, both work and hobby is motor racing. They're the people that never go home and always do it. And I lived that for a fair amount of that time. And so I really had a little bit of burnout and said, okay, I'm ready for something else. And
we all get to that point.
Absolutely. I mean, it is amazing. The human, mind and body certainly needs breaks. I'm a big believer in that, and still look for that in all career places and things, because if you just overdo something, it's not going to be good in the end. But so then I worked in that apparel industry with the leather goods for pretty much 10 years. That kind of no racing during that time. After maybe 5 of those years, I got back to watching a little bit of F1 on TV, but really, really left the motor racing business. And then one day at another career change juncture, a friend of mine came in and said to me, look, there's this business for sale that makes fuel injectors. And I said, I'm not really interested right now. I'm good. I had just transitioned to being Mr. Mom for a little while, and my wife's career had taken off pretty big, and she was very busy there. And I said, I don't really want to look at it. And a friend said, you got to look at it. This thing has you written all over it. I said, okay, let me go look. And I looked at it, and it ticked so many boxes. It just wasn't funny. It was a small product. You didn't need to have big square footage. Mm-hmm. It was something technical, something I knew something about. And it was for sale. It was local to me. So, there was my entry back into this realm. And
can you tell us the name of the company it was before?
It was Fuel Injector Clinic.
Okay, so that was originally called that when you just took it over then?
That is correct. I believe the owner had been in business with it for, I think, as much as 8 years or something like that. But it was very small. It was a side business to another business he had, and then eventually he sold the main business, and then went off to sell this business to, he was older, in his 70s, and he wanted to sell the business, and I said, okay, let's make a deal. And it took a long time to get through all the wranglings to get it done, but eventually we got it done, and there I was. It was I want to say one-man business, but it was probably a half-a-man business, because the owner was just doing it part-time, and mm-hmm. and that suited me well. I could take care of my kids. I have 2 kids, one who's just gone to Georgia Tech, and another one, the daughter is a junior in high school. So at the time they were little, and it was something I could close the doors, walk out, and go, have lunch with them and come back and do some more work. We have very little walk-in traffic, and most everything was online.
What kind of time frame was it that you took it over?
Yeah, like 2007. So we're coming up on 10 years that I've been the owner of Fuel Injector Clinic, and certainly I think we've made it into a very different company. Mm-hmm. A lot of ramping up that we did right away. I was able to apply all the knowledge I'd learned, both about marketing and sales, and organizing inventory and shipping and all of that to the company, and give it a lot more structure. And it grew and grew, and today we are 9 people on the payroll. Some of them are part-time, but we certainly a different business for sure, and enjoying it still a lot. I still do a lot of sailing because that's my hobby still. but certainly love working back in the motor racing industry. And I know now that, I certainly belonged there from the beginning. Never look back on whether I should have gone into HVAC.
But did working in the clothing industry help you at all for doing this? Sounds like your inventory and marketing and stuff may have been applied from that.
I would certainly say yes. I think those were my years in which I also learned how to do business in the United States. When one thinks business is the same everywhere, but having worked both in South Africa and in Europe, I can tell you it's very different. This is a total sales-driven economy. I think Americans are salesmen by nature. Even the ones that think they couldn't sell anything don't realize how much they are, just taught to be confident, forward, and, entrepreneurs. Even though not everybody's an entrepreneur, it is something that is so much interwoven, I believe, into the culture here. And I had to learn that. And I was very fortunate because that is, what that other businesses and working for that leather goods business brought me, because it's an amazing experience to learn that transition and to realize when you've suddenly had a little success in a new dimension really that you moved into. So that was definitely a formative part. And then of course, there's all the things that you learn that are more nuts and bolts, like, how to run the software and how to run reps in a sales system and, all the other things, the HR things you learn, etc.
You touched on it just a little bit. Do you think of yourself as an entrepreneur? Is that something that you set out to start a business, or just by chance that it kind of came upon you?
Well, I certainly think of myself as an entrepreneur. But the one thing that I feel like I'd want to share with people is that I don't think I did anything different in the jobs I worked than when I owned my own business. I mean, sure, there are some small nuances that are different, but the biggest thing is that I went to work every day at whatever job I did, and I gave the same to the business that I was working at for a salary than I did for my own business. And this isn't the only business that I've had, and I've failed at a business before. And in every one of those experiences, I gave everything. I was prepared to stay late at a job that paid me a salary, and whether that was the job where I was sweeping the floors or when I'm here by myself in late hours having to finish something up for my business. It's a mindset. I think entrepreneurial thinking is a mindset, and you take it wherever you go, and I believe it stands you in pretty good stead everywhere. And of course, it stands you in the best stead when it comes back, into your own bank account and so on. But
that's actually a pretty unique perspective, because I've worked a lot of different jobs myself too, and I can honestly say I've never put as much time or effort into any of them as I do my own businesses. And it's unique that you are coming from European, South African background, and you said that the businesses are very different, and that you apply yourself to, no matter what you're doing, equally to what you're, even if you own it or don't own it. So that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, I've had a lot of conversations with people about, being a business owner. And sometimes, when you finally have the maybe success and the, I don't want to call it stature, but recognition for, having your own business, people seem to want to ask you, well, what did you do? What was it? And I think, look, I did the same thing everywhere. I just apply myself. I don't ask for, every bit of time or comp or, compensation for money wise for everything I do. I just go in and I give it what I've got. And a lot of that is really in your own job satisfaction. When you leave that you gave it what you had, and you just take that home. And I've always felt that, maybe I've just been lucky, but most people have recognized what I bring either to their company or, to to a particular job and it's been come back in promotions or in, opportunities, sometimes it comes back to you where somebody, who you're working for sees that they can't really fulfill what you can do, and they'll, get you a connection to somebody else, and you'll go, wow, you could have just said nothing and had me work for you for another, 6 months or a few years or whatever, because, I'm sure eventually you move on if you don't get anywhere. But, I've had good experiences that way, people that have connected me up to other people, and I try and do that with my, people that work for me, and making sure that they know you'll have an opportunity here, and if you are, a faster grower than what we are as a business, I'll be happy to, help you along and get you where you need to be, because there's no way I can hold on to you, or only for such a short period, that it really doesn't make sense. So yeah. I'm all about the big picture there.
You touched on it a little bit that what you do is primarily internet sales. So has location really played a role in your success, or could you have done this really anywhere?
Certainly, Fuel Injector Clinic could move in a heartbeat. We are, just dependent on a UPS pickup. But if that question for me brings back more, I can do this business in the United States. This business opportunity does not exist in South Africa, and I would almost doubt that it exists in Europe. This market is such a, well, I say market, this economy here in the United States is such a big economy, and there are so many small niches that provide enough, volume that one can make a living here. That as far as location, I feel if I can look at it as a United States, then that would be what I would say to yes, the location does make a difference for me.
Cool. Have you ever doubted yourself and wondered if it doesn't work? What are you going to do, and how do you overcome that feeling?
Oh yeah, sure. You always doubt. It's never a clear path. It's all shades of gray. I'm a proverbial engineer in one way that, I overanalyze most of the problems set in front of me. And, when you think you've looked at it from every angle and you've decided that's the good decision, this is the path to take, then of course you can think of another 3 angles and you start all over again. That being said, I am somebody who is willing to take risks. I think that has become clear, certainly at this age, from looking back and, leaving the country I grew up in and being able to change over to many different careers and so on. And that, of course, is something that you need. Yes. You are always worried about, did you make the right decision? But I certainly believe that, look at things properly, do your due diligence, and then take the risk. You have to walk through the doors. Otherwise, will not be any success. There will also probably not be as many crashes, but certainly the success will be much smaller too if you're not willing to take the risk.
Right. That's I guess in the U.S. it's very much so the motto of, I guess, entrepreneurship. If you don't take any risk, you're not going to have any reward. And that applies even to like stocks or, like investment or really everything. If you don't take the risk, you're not going to see a big reward. So what's the worst experience you've had in business?
Well, there's a clear standout experience in that one, that's for sure. The guy that sold me Fuel Injector Clinic decided in his own mind that he did not really either understand or want to take the non-compete very seriously, and opened up within 6 months of selling me the company through a family member in clear violation of his non-compete. So that was a shocking experience, and of course very scary. My wife and I had put our house up as collateral, our primary residence, and this wasn't cool. And that experience certainly taught me a few things, and one of those was that people convince themselves of some very strange things in life. This man convinced himself that whatever was in his brain I could not own, so he was therefore able to share it with whomever he wanted. And he told me this in a phone call many years later that we happened to have, because I wasn't really seeking him out anymore, as you can imagine. But the fact that, he was either incapable of connecting that to what stood in the contract as, intellectual property, or he just, didn't want to see that and just felt like he could, go on and do what he wanted with that. The other lesson I got out of that was, don't get involved in litigation. Don't get involved with somebody who's, doing something wrong to you, unless it is the only path that you have. It's very negative energy. The dollars that you can spend in the legal system are just crazy. It's just a bottomless pit. And I've, handed this advice on when solicited by a couple of other, people in our industry and so on, that, don't go into it, because if you can go on and you can just compete and outsell and out business, the other person, move on, because look at something positive and go on. So that experience, is clear the one that stands out as the worst experience in business.
Sounds like you sued him for the violating the contract. Whatever happened from that?
Well, we stopped short of filing a lawsuit. He had covered himself just a little bit by working through this family member, and that would have made out-of-state litigation and so on. And so basically, after spending, somewhere in the region of $10,000 with the lawyers for just basically writing letters and them sitting down with me and listening to my story, they basically said, well, I got to either, get ready for litigation and put down $50,000 to $100,000, or, we should just leave this. And, my wife and I looked at that and looked at all the negative energy we had spent. That was after, about 6 months of having, reviewed and been involved in the situation. And we just said, let's put it behind us. In 6 months, it hadn't damaged our, business enough that we could, see the exact damage that was there. I mean, it was, there were websites up there. There were, some of our customers were getting contacted, et cetera. But, I had done well in building the relationships with our main customers. And actually, to this day, I only know of one customer that switched to the other guy. And so...
Is he still around?
We decided to go there. He is, actually. He is. We hear less and less of him, and at this point, I don't remember his exact age, but he's got to be in his late 70s. So, that was my other thing that was kind of shocking. How do you do something like that when you're like 70-something years old? Are we supposed to be wiser than that at that point in our lives? But I guess, it's in some people's nature.
So we just talked about the negative thing here, but what's something you're doing right now that has you fired up?
We're looking to do a little expansion here into the service area. We get a lot of call for service, especially from the marine industry around South Florida here. It's a big, water sport area. And that's something that, something new and refreshing. And I have a team member that just joined us here who's willing and excited about going into that, and that has me fired up. It's people. We're in a people game, and when some team member decides that this is something that he's gonna go after, then I'm all game for that. It's another door that we can open up and walk through and take our opportunities as they come out of that. And right now, that's something we're looking to do. It'll teach us new things about specialty injectors that are in the marine world, and so there's a technical component to it. And then there's opening up basically a new little side business.
So it's interesting. You're actually taking recommendations from your employees and applying them to, new sources of revenue or new paths for the business?
Oh, certainly. I always am open to ideas. I like the ideas of others. It's a way of job sharing, really, right? Uh, it's it's certainly something that I feel that I, do as a policy is to include and be a team rather than, a top-down structure. That's not who I am. I think you've met me a couple of times, and we've certainly enjoyed talking business. And you guys are successful in what you do, and it's all about sharing and collaborating. And certainly with the people you work with every day, that's the most important.
Awesome. Let's take a quick break a second. The goal of Do It for a Living is to give you insight to how others have become successful in this industry. Another thing we created to help with this is our Essentials of Operating a Shop seminar. This new class from EFI University is a one-day management seminar to help aftermarket automotive shop owners operate their business more efficiently. We cover various topics including employee management, accounting, marketing, purchasing capital equipment, and many more. We're holding our next class in Los Angeles, California on October 15th, followed by Indianapolis, Indiana at the PRI show on December 7th. For more information, go to EFI101.com and check out the Essentials of Operating a Shop page. And be sure to use coupon code DIFAL for $50 off when you sign up. Okay, we're back. So, Jens, let's talk about Fuel Injector Clinic here. How big is the space you're in, and do you rent it or do you own it? And you said it's in Fort Lauderdale, right?
Yeah, we're not quite in Fort Lauderdale. We're actually just a little bit north of West Palm Beach. It's right about where the big humdrum of what is South Florida ends. So we have access to going to, as we call it, Generica if we want to. But we're a little bit outside of that. And it's not a big place. We have small product. We can fit a lot of product in a small space. So we have about 3,000 square feet here. And I am certainly a renter for business. I will own all kinds of property for my private use, but for the business, I like to rent because I like to be flexible. I've seen through the other businesses that I've worked in, you can grow quickly, you can shrink quickly. And if you own property, then you've got a big albatross around your neck both ways. So
awesome. Have you ever written a formal business plan?
Yes, I have, for more than one business, certainly for one that has failed, and certainly also for this one. We took an SBA loan in the beginning to buy this business, and they certainly like to have a business plan. I believe that is a very good thing to do. I will advise anybody who thinks of starting their own business to go through that process. If nothing else, it takes away some of the unicorns and things that exist in one's mind about what it's all going to be about, and certainly also to do the math to see what you need in finances and so on. A lot of people think, okay, I need X dollars because this is a business for sale or a startup, with the equipment that I need and so on. But there's a nice component that is, the running costs and so on. And that all comes out when you do a good business plan.
Are you on target with the business plan, or do you have to modify it often?
Oh, it certainly is something that you would modify. As I said, one business I did that for, we basically failed at. And so there was the modification there for sure.
Do it right the next time, right?
Exactly. And then with this business plan with Fuel Injector Clinic, it was, as I said, a half a man show when we started, and the business plan really only kept it really small. As I said, at the time, my wife was a primary breadwinner, and so it was, that business plan was very moderate. And yes, we've exceeded that one multiple times. So.
You mentioned you have 9 employees. Can you kind of break down what they do, and then do you find it difficult to manage them or keep them on task at all?
I feel that, just to answer the on task part first, that it's all about people wanting to be at work. And if people want to be at work, then is a whole lot easier to keep them on task. So that's really kind of the criteria I look for, and that's the people I've surrounded myself with, both here and in other places where I've hired people for the businesses I was working for. It's finding team members that want to be here, and so we have basically we have a sales team that's comprised of 3 people, and we have a production team that's comprised of 3 full-time people and a couple of part-time young engineers that we like to employ here as part-time to help them understand how business works and get on. So that's kind of the hierarchy. I have one original team member that joined me very early on. His name is Tim. He's my general manager, and he has been very instrumental in our growth and making this company a success. And he and I are like-minded in many ways, and that's what I think it takes. As a philosophy, I prefer to work with younger people who come here to learn, and I'm happy to share my experiences, and all they really need to bring is a good work ethic, and then that's kind of the business motto as far as hiring people that I like.
You can kind of mold them into the person or the position you need, huh?
Yeah. I think what I found in other places, especially when hiring relatively high level people, they come in so much with their own way of doing things that you've got to adapt to that, and that may not be a bad plan for some people. Personally, I guess maybe as the entrepreneurial mentality, you sort of have this idea that your way is as good as any other, and you may as well surround yourself with people that are like-minded, and then try and diversify. Maybe that person who wants to do it differently is better off with a like-minded business where he fits in or she fits in.
Your revenue, obviously most of it's going to be coming from manufacturing injectors, but you also have like services for cleaning and flow testing injectors you make. Sounds like you're now doing like service to like remove and install or custom injectors. Like, give us kind of a breakdown of where the revenue is coming from.
Yeah, certainly the sales of injectors is the primary. We are primarily a performance injector, and I call it manufacturer. I will clarify with that I don't actually think anybody in the automotive aftermarket is manufacturing their own injectors. The equipment to do that is far beyond the reach of small businesses like us that are in this niche. So we buy product from the big suppliers to the automotive, the big OEs like Bosch, Siemens, Delphi, and then we basically modify them for use in the aftermarket, mostly increasing the flow rate. And then the big thing is matching the injectors properly so that they work. So that's, light manufacturing, if we might call it that. And certainly the service needs to be there. You need to be able to service your own injectors. And the moment you do that, you may as well service other people's injectors. And in this new project, we're going into an area. There are some specialty injectors in the marine industry that are basically direct injectors that do not have a high pressure pump that drive them. They create their own high pressure right there in the injector, and that brings a whole new technology to us, and it's going to be very interesting.
Okay, you guys have worked with another company in the past, and the collaboration was with ASNU. Kind of explain that. ASNU is out of England, and kind of explain what you guys did together and how did that work out?
Yeah, no, we have a very good relationship with ASNU. They are one of the people that is closest connected in the development side with Bosch out of Germany, and all the injectors are developed by Bosch in Germany. And and that has been very fruitful in both directions. I believe we can offset a lot of injectors for them here in the United States, and in turn they can use the volume on that side to show Bosch that they are big players in the injector aftermarket, and therefore get the kind of support that we as the aftermarket really need from Bosch. One of the biggest things that's hard to get out of the people that are making the injectors is that we are significant enough for them to care about making a product for us, because you can easily imagine a Ford or a Mercedes or one of the big manufacturers, like car manufacturers like that, will take millions of injectors from a company like Bosch. So when we come and we say we want 10,000, they sort of scratch their head and say, "Well, that's how many we that's how many we throw away before the production run is properly engaged." So that has been a big thing that we could do with ASNU. They are actually the makers of what I believe to be one of the best injectors out there in the aftermarket. It's the only injector over 1,000 cc that has a proper spray plate that makes a good spray pattern. And we've represented them here in the U.S. for the last few years. It's a difficult sell. Any product that is manufactured and imported from another first world economy is a tough sell here in just in pricing. But it is, as far as we're concerned, the best product, and we will keep on supporting that. That you asked about collaboration in business. We certainly have had other companies that we collaborate with. One of our big developments was together with Tom Doris from ECM Tuning, who we did a lot of developing of all the data that goes into running these injectors well in the aftermarket is from, and he was very instrumental in us having this specialty flow bench that we developed with him, and it has been a game changer, certainly in our particular business. And then recently we've worked together with Holly. I don't know if you know, but they sponsored the whole EFI changeover in the Pro Stock cars, and we provided all the data and actually did a lot of work on the injectors for them. It was a market they were not in. They needed a very large injector because they were looking to inject the fuel in a very small time window in those cars, and it was just not part of their swim lane. And right there's a great collaboration. And so today we have a good relationship with them too.
So you're supplying injectors to a lot of the Pro Mod or Pro Stock or whatever drag cars, then it sounds like.
We do all the matching of the injectors.
Okay.
It is actually a Holly injector that is sold to them, but that is
you're using your equipment to match them.
Yes.
Gotcha.
They needed a way to make sure that those guys who are so very analytical about their racing to know what they're getting, what it exactly is that they're getting, and where they can take that information and do something magic with it, because that's what they all feel they're doing.
And they're obviously very quick cars. Are you doing any advertising or marketing?
Yes, obviously. I think any business does. And as a matter of fact, I am a believer in the fact that, your sales and marketing, certainly here in the United States, is the primary function that, you need to have. Too many people think that all you need to do is make a good product and the customers will come. But the truth of the matter is, you need to be out there. You need to show what you have and be willing to, represent what you do. For sure. So we do some print advertising, D-Sport magazine, PRI magazine. A lot of it has moved to online advertising. We participate with a group called Power Auto Media. They do the LSX and Stang TV and Revd, and we certainly advertise on some forums still, although that is an area that is reducing for us. And then, Facebook is huge, and certainly a lot of the other social media places. I think we did some Snapchat advertising at the Busher Shootout, actually, where you can select
a 2-mile radius around where you're located or something.
Yeah, it's incredibly interesting how accurately you can determine the area that you basically move this little these little multi-shaped object around to where it is. But then basically, if anybody at that event is going through Snapchat, they will be able to pick, it says fuel injector clinic at the Busher Shootout or something like that, and include that in their picture.
What do you find the most successful method to promote your business? Like, obviously, I see you at all the trade shows, but those are hugely expensive to actually be there, and sometimes, at least for us, the return is always, is it worth it or not? Like, I'm not selling a product at a show, I'm selling it post a show, but for you, you're actually selling product at the show, right?
We don't actually sell so much at the trade shows. I mean, you certainly meet some customers, but our game is mostly about people buying the product exactly when they need it. A certain car build is done here or there. But it is a lot of relationship building there. We've certainly made some of the best connections in the business there. For example, the Holly connection would never have come if we didn't go to a PRI and met people there that we knew, that they knew, that made the bridge between the two companies. So we do go there, and we go there as a way to be in the industry, to understand what's going on in the industry, and be party to that bigger picture. But our most successful advertising and things comes through the social media. I mean, I have a dedicated person who is, social media only. And I think in today's, world, you have to be able to put out videos. So many people want to see, what you do via, the pictures in that way, for sure.
I saw that you recently are now selling through Motivicity. So you're going through, you've always been manufacturer direct. So I've always bought stuff directly from you guys. And I think that's the only way you've done it for years and years and years, until very recently, where now you're selling through Motivicity. So how is that working out for you?
Well, it's very early days with us in the Motivicity. We only very recently decided to do that. We still like, and we've stayed in the realm of wanting to go direct to our customers, because there's so much information that needs to be exchanged for the people to make a good choice in which injectors to buy, that we certainly prefer the direct contact. The flip side is, there's a lot of pressure for convenience to be in at least one of the distribution houses, so that people can buy, all the whole kit for that car in one place, shops and so on. So
yeah, cuts down on shipping a little bit.
Yeah, it cuts down on shipping. I'm sure there's a convenience factor of not having to place, 6 different POs when you can place one, and so on. And so we have gone there. Where that relationship is going to go, we'll have to see. We are certainly, it's not a major shift for us. We're just, providing the convenience to the customers that want to take advantage of that.
Okay. And how many hours a week are you working?
That's a difficult one to answer. I'm here at the office probably around, 35 to 40 hours a week. I do like to, take the time off. One of the things that I believe is that, the business should provide, for the person and not the other way around. That being said, as a business owner, when are you not working? Because you're sitting at home over a beer talking to a friend, and you're talking business. Is that work? It certainly brings a lot to my work. So it's difficult to say. But certainly this is not the place where I have been the hardest worker on paper. I mean, the number of years I spent, where there was no limit to the work week, racing, coming home, rebuilding the car if we crashed it, certainly is not something that I would say that I haven't done, the 80, 100-hour work weeks, sometimes for a while at a time.
And did your family change? I mean, you have a family, you have a wife and kids. Is that kind of is dictating your schedule then? Essentially, it's what you're saying, right?
Yeah, I mean, the kids are old enough now where that's not that much of a thing. It was certainly great to have this little business and the freedom when they were younger. That is something that I can say is good about being your own boss. A lot of people in this country do not get a lot of vacation and don't have the flexibility of stepping out, for an hour or two here and there. So that was great to have, and now it gives me some work-life balance. I still love my sailing. We go and charter a boat here and there down in the Caribbean and that kind of thing, and it allows me to go see my family in South Africa for lengths of time that are often not available to others. I would easily go for 3 weeks or something over there. Although I got a couple of customers there, so
and the internet has made it possible for you to actually work from there too, if you need to, right?
Certainly. I mean, the ability to log in and to take care of business that you need to over the internet is certainly been a huge game changer.
So are we gonna your new residence is gonna be a sailboat, and when you call FIC and ask for Jens, you're gonna get you on a boat in the Caribbean somewhere? Is that how this is going?
Yeah, that wouldn't be too crazy to think about. I'd have to talk to Tim about that if he's okay if I. But yes, absolutely, that would be a dream come true for sure.
Does the pay justify the time spent?
I think so. I'm not one to chase money. But I enjoy building a healthy business, and that includes making sure that there's margin, that you're safe from being on that scary edge. And so yes, that the profits and the money that comes back to you is great, but it's not something that I chase overall.
Okay. And what are the primary tools you're using in your trade, I guess? What are you using to manage the business, like QuickBooks? You said you have a shop manager. What else are you using?
Yeah, sure. QuickBooks is our primary. We have an enterprise edition QuickBooks with multiple users, and that is our absolute primary tool. We find it has all the shipping managers and all that kind of stuff that works well for us. And I think it would take quite something to move me away from there. I recently spoke to a customer of ours who's gone to an SAP-based system, and they were just once again telling me that story they've heard so often about the changeover and the customization and all that kind of stuff. And I was just like, yeah, keep it simple,
Yep. Yeah, we actually find that quite often as people always want all these little customizations, and it just makes it more and more complicated when you do that, and takes more and more time. And keeping it simple is obviously, in my opinion, the way to efficiency, not having to spend lots of time customizing everything. So
yeah, no, I think, if you have to keep a little Excel sheet around here or a piece of paper around there, there's nothing wrong with going a little retro here and there, so as not to get too complex, in your software systems, because without a doubt, all of them, require maintenance of some sort or another.
Mm-hmm. What's something you're doing differently that makes you successful that others might not have thought about?
Yeah, that's a difficult one for me, but I think the one thing I would say is be open to other people and diversities, and give people the benefit of the doubt. Don't look too deep into superficial things, certainly not in business. Don't get caught up of superimposing your own views on on your business partners, and be willing to deal with everybody and just collaborate, be open. So I don't know if that's very different from what other people do. I sort of feel that's one of the traits of good businesses, that they are ready to do business with everybody and find ways to resolve differences rather than create some sort of conflict. And I certainly feel that's one of the things that makes us a good company to work with.
Awesome. Well, before we continue on to the last questions about yourself, let's take another break. We all know owning a shop is difficult, so we created My Shop Assist to help you manage the various jobs. Whether you run a machine shop, a performance tuning shop, build off-road trucks, or even do powder coating, My Shop Assist can help you. It is completely online and will help you schedule the jobs, log time on each task, track parts orders, and take pictures of the work. You can even export your jobs from My Shop Assist into QuickBooks as invoices. So if you're interested to improve operations at your shop, check out myshopassist.com to start your 30-day free trial. All right, Jens, what's something you struggle with in business and how do you deal with it?
I have to say that I think motivation after doing the same thing for many years is a challenge. I think we all burn out a little bit. I spoke earlier a little bit about the burnout in motor racing, and you go, well, how do you burn out at something you love that much? But the truth of the matter is you do. New concepts, being involved in something new is exciting, and so on. So that's probably for me, approaching the 10-year mark in this particular business, and that is the equal to the longest that I was with another business, which was that leather goods business. And I'm having to reinvent myself, and that's that's a challenge. And when you can get over that, I guess it feels good, but without a doubt, you got to work on it.
Okay. What is your 1-year plan for the business and for yourself?
Well, certainly, this new venture with the services is probably in our 1-year plan. After that, I certainly think that, we've got to evaluate what is coming down the line with the direct injection for us. A lot of those cars will come into the age where they are affordable for people to modify. And we're trying to see where that goes in our particular business, because I feel that's where the doors are going to open and close for us in the slightly longer term. But in the 1 year, we're looking at, one bite that we can take out, which is in the service side.
Okay. So then your 5-year plan, obviously direct injection, that's what you're looking to be doing.
Yes. And direct injection has a lot of challenges. We've certainly found that, the challenges lie as much in the pumps as they do in the injectors in that side. And since we're not pump people, we're sort of looking there for a collaboration. And there's also lots of challenges in the software side, because the fuel maps and the whole mapping concept of direct injection is another whole scale more complex than port injection. What's interesting is that we're seeing more and more the whole dual injection cropping up, where people are coming back to having port and the direct injection, since I think there's some benefits in longevity. There are some issues that the car manufacturers coming across with the valves not getting lubricated, etc., and carbon buildup and so on. So that would be good. We're certainly easier for us to work into that and not have to deal with the injectors being in that, very tough environment inside the combustion chamber.
We like to take action on Do It for a Living. Can you suggest an action item for our listeners that they can take away to improve their situation?
Go on vacation or take a weekend off or something, and make it your goal to take a step back. Maybe take somebody you trust, or somebody that knows you or your business, or ideally both, really well, and take stock of where you are and make a plan of what you're doing, how you can change your business to be better, or, are you doing the right thing? Sometimes it's just, affirmation. that's in that. But certainly having a clear purpose and getting that through a good review of your business metrics, and making that an actual job by taking the time is, I think, what I would say.
Well, I'm going to take your advice, and I will be at FL2K this year, which I guess is in about a month, 3 weeks or so.
Yeah,
and
cool.
I'm bringing my family, and we're going to Disney World after. It's a 4-day weekend, so we got a couple days to go have fun at Disney World.
Absolutely. Well, it's a pity. I'm guessing you're not coming down our way here, right? You're not driving down this way.
It's quite a bit further away, right? Because I guess
it's
the
another 2 hours.
is. That's not too bad. Maybe I will. I'll think about it.
Yeah,
I'll have to convince the wife and the kids. So.
That's for sure. Well, if you come our way and it's a day where you can spend out, I'd be happy to take the wife and kids out on a boat and go run around what we do here and have some fun.
Okay, well, maybe I'll hit you up on that. Okay, so moving on here, we got the quick answer question. So just kind of say what comes to your mind for most of these. So what's a game-changing product you've seen in the last year?
I think these drones that we see everywhere is something that's very intriguing to me. I think they have so many different applications, and just the fact that virtually anybody can use them. I think it's going to bring us a somewhat changing environment.
If I see fuel injector delivery from drone, is that what we're thinking?
Yeah, sir. I mean, it's funny because, already we're using it in the media, to take shots that we've never been able to take before, and, a new perspective, and, certainly, the delivery. And I think there's a lot of things that we haven't seen yet that these drones are going to, be able to do. It's just something, taking back I was into like model airplanes, many, many years ago as a kid, and how difficult it was to learn to fly that little model airplane. And I loved it, but I never actually mastered it because it was too many hours of learning to try and do it. And here you have this plane, and it, anybody can fly it basically.
What software programs are you using daily?
Well, we mentioned QuickBooks there. I mean, that's definitely, primary for us. I certainly have become quite good and love working at it. I'm a big Excel guy too. I think all engineers are. But yeah, I'm not, I'm not really a techno head. So I stick with the basics.
Are you using any phone apps daily?
Not so much basic stuff, Google Maps. Is that a fair answer?
Definitely. I use that one all the time too. I'm not a fan of the Apple Maps. I use the Google Maps.
Nope, absolutely.
What's your favorite shop tool?
Oh, that one's easy. Our custom flow bench that we built is awesome. Even Bosch, the guys at Bosch in Germany were impressed with the data that we are able to collect and how fast we could get it. And, it's a pleasure when you have made a tool that does exactly what you need to do, and then you get to use it and solve problems and provide, extra service and things. That's awesome.
Very neat. And what kind of car are you driving?
I'm an Evo 10 guy. I, enjoy driving it too much. The police disagree with how much I, should enjoy driving my car. And so that's been a downside since having kids on your insurance and then seeing tickets on it is not a pleasurable experience in the pocketbook. I struggle with keeping it under control, especially growing up in South Africa, where I have to admit we had no point system and there was nothing like that. So all you really did was say, okay, 10% of your salary goes to speeding tickets. And you were good to go.
Do you race the Evo at all, or is it just your daily driver?
It is just a daily driver. It's interesting. So many people ask me that, but I have always been in motor racing for the technical side. I was happy to let my friend be the driver. And not to say that I didn't occasionally, drive a car around the track and get the little bit of the experience, but it's certainly not it's not what I want to do. I drive too fast on the road, but that's, not fast at all compared to somebody on the track. So,
okay. And what do you think the future of automotive performance is going to be?
Gearheads will always exist. I can't even imagine that, any society that doesn't have them. I look how, in Germany, the whole car modification thing is extremely regulated. And yet, I have some cousins and nephews over there, and they're all gearheads. They tinker with what they can, and then they club together to take a car that, can go to a track on a trailer. Because it's not allowed to be driven on the road. So we might have to adapt. We may get regulated some more. I think that's coming. But I think there's always going to be a market because, we like to tinker.
All right, Jens, and how do we connect with you and your company?
You can always find us certainly on the internet at www.fuelinjectorclinic.com. You can call us on the phone. We pride ourselves on answering the phone and talking to you. We're at 561-427-0082, and certainly info at fuelinjectorclinic.com via email, Facebook, and we like to talk to our customers. That's something we pride ourselves on doing. So
excellent. Well, Jens, I really appreciate you taking the time to talk with us.
Awesome. It was a pleasure talking to you. And, it's interesting being able to relate back to so many things and look back over your career and share it through your...
self-reflection. This is not just for other people. It's for yourself as well, huh?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Cool. And then I guess, are you guys going to be at FL2K?
I'm going to have a team there, but I will not be there myself. So that's going to be a bummer, but you will see our guys there. We do take a vendor booth and set up over there. And
what about SEMA and PRI? Will you be at both of those?
I will be at SEMA as an ASNU guy in the ASNU booth. And then at PRI, we have our own booth.
Awesome.
So we will
I'll see you at all three of them then. Well, I FL2K, but I'll see your guys at all three events.
Awesome. Yeah, and good luck with this. I think this is a cool concept.
Thanks for listening to Do It for a Living. You can find out more about this guest, this show, and even details about what we just talked about at our website, doitforaliving.net. Check out the Facebook page at facebook.com/doitforaliving and tell us who you want to hear from. And most importantly, subscribe to the podcast.